The line at the Veterans Affairs office moved the way such lines always do, slowly, without apology, as if time itself had decided that people who had already sacrificed enough could afford to give a little more. Ruth Ibarra stood near the back, wearing a plain gray cardigan and sensible shoes that nurses and grandmothers favor. She held a canvas tote bag printed with the logo of a local grocery chain. She looked like someone's aunt. She looked like someone who baked sweet potato pies and knew all the words to old hymns. She looked, in short, like someone who had never once made anyone afraid. That was, she had long ago decided, her greatest advantage. The clerk at window 4 was having a visible kind of bad day, the kind written across the shoulders and expressed through the mouth. His name tag said Gerald. Gerald had not looked up from his computer screen in nearly 20 minutes. When Ruth finally reached his window and placed her paperwork on the counter, he glanced at it the way you glance at something you plan to dismiss. "Purpose of visit?" he said, still not looking at her. "Pension adjustment and service record correction," Ruth said. Her voice was quiet and unhurried, the voice of a woman who had learned that calm was its own form of authority. Gerald typed something, stopped, typed again. "I'm going to need your ID," he said, with the flatness of a man who found the public exhausting. Ruth opened her canvas tote and produced a worn leather wallet. She removed her military identification card and slid it across the counter. Gerald picked it up. He looked at it. Then he made a sound, something between a laugh and a scoff, and turned to his colleague at window 3, a younger woman named Patricia, who was pretending not to listen. "Hey, Pat," he said, holding the card up. "You seen one of these before?" There was amusement in his voice, the low certainty of someone about to share a joke. Patricia looked over. She blinked at the card. Then the amusement left her face with the quiet urgency of a candle going out. Gerald hadn't read it fully. He had seen the photo, a woman who looked unremarkable, ordinary, like someone's aunt in a grocery store cardigan, and let assumption finish his reading for him. It was a mistake people had been making around Ruth Ibarra for 61 years, and one she had never once corrected by raising her voice. Patricia reached over and touched Gerald's arm. "Gerald," she said, with a tone that meant stop. He looked at the card again. This time he read it. The color that left his face did so all at once, as if someone had pulled a drain. Ruth watched it happen without expression. She had watched it happen before, in briefing rooms across 3 countries, in Pentagon corridors, in the faces of men who assumed the woman carrying the coffee was there to serve it rather than chair the meeting. Each time she felt not triumph, but something quieter, something closer to tired. The card identified Ruth Elaine Ibarra as a retired 4-star general of the United States Army. It listed decorations that took up 3 lines of small print. It recorded 38 years of service that had threaded through conflicts, crises, and commands most people only read about in history books. She had led divisions. She had been the first black woman to hold her final command. She had shaken hands with 4 presidents, 2 of whom had called her at midnight for advice they wouldn't take credit for in daylight. She was also, genuinely and without performance, someone's aunt. She did bake sweet potato pie. She did know all the words to old hymns. These things were not contradictions. They were the full shape of a human being, and the tragedy of assumption was that it could never hold that shape. Gerald stood. He didn't speak right away, and Ruth gave him the moment because she understood that shame. When it arrives suddenly, needs a few seconds to find its footing. "General Ibarra," he finally said, and his voice had changed entirely. "I apologize, I should have," he stopped. "Started again?" "I'm sorry, ma'am." Ruth looked at him for a long moment. Not to punish him with the looking, but because she wanted him to understand that she was a complete person receiving his apology, not a symbol, not a lesson. "I know," she said simply. Then, after a beat, "Now, Gerald, can we talk about my paperwork? I've been waiting a long time for this correction, and I'd like to get home before dark." He nodded, sat back down, and began to work with an attention he hadn't offered anyone all morning. Patricia brought a chair without being asked. Ruth sat in it and placed her canvas tote neatly beside her feet. Outside, the parking lot baked in afternoon heat. Inside, the line continued its slow crawl, and at window 4 a man who had laughed now worked with the quiet, corrected energy of someone taking stock, of his assumptions, his shortcuts. And how easily the eye misses what the heart refuses to look for in the first place. Ruth filled out her forms with a steady hand. She never hurried. She never had.